It's finally time to reveal to all of you what I've been working on. Welcome to the very first devlog of my new game. So this time we're making an RPG mainly for PC. And making an RPG like this is definitely my biggest challenge yet. And while the game is extremely early in development, I want to start sharing as much as I can of the journey with all of you and start getting your feedback on its current direction. So while it's still early days, I currently have 3 core gameplay pillars I really want to focus on getting right in this game. So the first pillar is creating fluid, challenging and impactful combat. Even though I love pixel art games, there are way too many of them that completely skip out on the actual combat mechanics. So what I myself miss in most pixel art RPGs is more focus on good combat, which of course is much easier said than done, but the goal is to spend a lot of time trying to make something that actually feels good and challenging. Now the second pillar is what I call interactive crafting. I absolutely love crafting and upgrading armor and weapons, planning what potions or items to bring and use and so on, but I hate crafting systems that are just click a menu and get an item. So I want you to actually feel like a blacksmith, running around hammering metal and making real choices about your gear. So I have no idea if this is actually gonna work out or not, but it's one of the core pillars I want to try to make work. Now the third pillar is base building. For all of you that have played my previous game Pixel Tribe, I guess you're not really surprised that I love base building. Being able to upgrade, improve and expand your own little clan is something I really want to get right here as well. But with these 3 pillars, it's so easy to just say I want this and I want that and so on, but actually achieving these goals is gonna take tons of work and iterations on implementing, testing, failing and changing things. And this is where I'm gonna need as much help as possible. My previous game Pixel Tribe would never have become what it is today if it wasn't for all of your feedback. And I want to do the same for this game. That means early playtesting, rapid iteration and brutally honest feedback. So even though it's terrifying to show you something this early, I truly need your help to actually make the game as fun as possible. And although I have a small vision of where I'm trying to take the game, together we might find a completely new and better direction that will make the game even better. But alright, let's talk combat. This is the first gameplay pillar I wanted to test out. And last week I published the very first prototype to a handful of players. It's not the longest demo, but the goal was to see how the current implementation actually feels. And already after a couple of days, we've gotten a ton of feedback on how to actually improve it. So as you can see, you only have a single weapon with 2 abilities for now. The normal attack and the secondary AoE attack. And we also have a dash to improve movement and let you dodge projectiles and enemies. Now, one of the biggest questions I've been trying to figure out is how we actually want the different abilities in the game. And here we basically have 2 options. We could either, 1, have different weapon types that all have 2 different abilities each. So while the sword has the swing and the AoE attack, then a bow or a spear could have its own normal and special attack that's completely different. We could even have it so the dash itself changes based on what weapon you are equipping. Then we could give the character like a 2-weapon loadout or something, so you can quickly swap between a sword and a bow for different encounters. Then crafting, adding gems or enchantments to your weapons could also change the attacks to add lightning damage or lifesteal and so on. So this would be more like how Hades does its combat with the different weapons. Now the second option was to do more like Path of Exile and Diablo, where you have tons of abilities you can swap between almost freely. This could introduce more depth, but would be much harder to both implement and balance the game around. So currently I'm leaning more towards the first option, but this is where I would love to hear your thoughts on it before I start implementing it. I've also tried to make both the attacks and the movement as fluid as possible, even though it's a 2D game where you can only look to the right or left. So with the attacks here, you have like a 360 degrees attack, instead of locking the character to only be able to attack right or left with the character animation. And hopefully this will make the combat more dynamic and give you more control and options, even if it's just 2D. So I hope this both looks and feels okay to begin with. Also, this early I've only made 3 different enemy types to test out the combat. We have an angry chicken with a dash attack, a skeleton warrior with a normal sword swing, and a skeleton mage with its exploding fireballs. And together, even these 3 simple enemies are able to create quite interesting combat situations to test out how it feels. I could definitely spend hours just talking about everything I've added and done so far, and we're probably gonna get into the details of all of those things in future videos, but let's keep the first devlog as a brief overview of the things we got so far. So with these 3 enemies in place, I've also made rare and elite versions of the same enemies. Right now, the only difference is that they attack more often, cannot be interrupted like the normal enemies can, have higher stats, and generally move faster. But going forward, it would be much better having these enemies have more interesting and different mechanics than just higher numbers and more of the same attacks. I've also spent a lot of time and tried to make the combat feel as impactful as possible with loads of animations, sound effects, and visual feedback. And so far it feels quite okay to play, but please let me know if you can think of anything else that will make the combat feel less flat, or if there's anything else you would like to see here. Like just implementing proper communication of the enemy attacks can be really difficult in a 2D game like this. For example, when the chicken winds up its dash attack towards you, it was sometimes really difficult to see where he was aiming. So I tried implementing a small indicator at the feet to show the direction of the attack. But I've also been getting some feedback lately that this isn't really necessary, so things like this is a prime example of where I need your feedback to decide what to do. Another thing is the general art style of the game. I'm making a pixel art game once again, and this time it's a big jump in the amount of details I've put into things than what I'm used to. So let me know if you like this general style, or if you have any other ideas on inspirations I should use instead, especially things like the character, the enemies, and the general environment vibes. So going forward, I have a goal of uploading regular devlogs again here on YouTube. But the big question is if you guys would want me to upload at a fixed schedule, just showcasing what I've been working on, even if the features aren't finished or polished yet, or if you guys prefer that I properly implement something before I show it to you. Please let me know in the comments what you all prefer. And lastly, many are probably wondering why it has taken me so long just to finish up this small combat demo, and the answer to that question is this. But more of that later. Please like and subscribe to follow the development, and have an amazing day, and see you next time.